Do you know what it's like to live and work in a system that constantly tells you that you are flawed, that you are a problem, that you don't fit in with everybody? I want to talk about that today, and I'm going to talk to you about something that I think is really important about what it means and why I stress so much about living simply. And thanks so much to Tony for pointing this out. So, the system that we live in the academic game, a lot of people just don't understand what it's about. And what you'll see is that there's two messages that come out all the time. One of them is that we have winners, and the other one is that we have losers. And most people, the system focuses on the winners. And most people, in fact, almost all of them, feel like they're losers. They feel like they're behind. They feel like they're not good enough. They feel like they are the wrong person for the job. And we have a lot of conversations about what this actually means. A lot of it might come down to people would say that it's imposter syndrome. People might talk about how that they are, just not living up to expectations, that people have anxiety, all these kind of things. But ultimately what it comes down to is that there's a stress on performance and performing at an extremely high level. And you will see this in all areas where there is performance expectations, whether you're in an Olympic arena, whether you are doing any number of different things that are like this, where there's lots of people, an athlete, for example. What the heck does an athlete do after they're done? How do they interpret themselves? What's their identity look like? When all of a sudden they used to be in the NFL, and now they're no longer in the NFL. In the research game, in research careers, we're traded. We think of ourselves often as a high value commodity where we are trading ourselves and thinking about how we can get ahead and do better than everybody else. And so this often leads to behaviors that are not only sketchy sometimes, but also makes us feel bad. And we internalize these things where we think that we are the problem if we're unwilling to do these sketchy behaviors, for example. But what we end up doing, and most of us, even those that feel sketchy and do the sketchy things, is we feel bad about ourselves. And we internalize this. And we think of ourselves as failures, as problems, because we're not living up to the expectation of where we should be. And this was the impetus behind the Reciprocity Project. So initially, when I was in graduate school, I thought that I was the problem. I couldn't write that well. And so when I got out and started doing and became a young assistant professor, I was a foolish person to start a platform because nobody believes in it. Until now, I think people are getting it. But I was foolish because I thought the problem was how I wrote. But in reality, it's actually a system that makes you feel guilty and problematic about yourself. So the Reciprocity Project has changed dramatically from where it was this technical solution. But now I believe it's actually a problem of making us feel good inside and really going down that route of saying, you're just a good enough person. So yes, I'm still building out the platform. You could look at that. I'm going to put all sorts of funny, silly things that are in there to make us feel good and get us feedback along the way, because it is a lonely and painful journey to writing a research article. And I think, what if we can have anybody at any stage of life create a research article that was non-rejectable or a grant that was non-rejectable? We got unlimited amounts of technology to do this. I'm a freaking engineer, and I was looking at this problem the whole time. This is what drives me crazy. I was looking at this problem. We can process and synthesize craptacular oil sands way up north and we can transform it into oil so we can burn it in our cars, which doesn't make sense to me, but that's what we do. Now, if we could do that with available technologies, what the hell are we doing trying to go about this old way of thinking about we could do this ourselves and the problem is just because of us? We're the problem. We're not good enough. We're not smart enough. What if we can change this? What if the problem is the system that's in play? And what if we had a system that was encouraging, made us feel good, that was goofy and silly and all that kind of stuff? Now, I think that picks one part of it, right? Like that's one little tiny part. Now, why do I continue to do these YouTube videos? And why do I keep trying to hammer it down in your head? It's because we need to change the culture. The culture has this thinking that we, if we're not running good enough, if we're not fast enough, if we're not at the top, then we are a problem. And I want to change this and tell you at any moment of your life, you're doing good enough. And that, yes, it's okay to take breaks. We know this. This is the insane thing that drives me insane. There are researchers literally out there that are researching, because I know that, because I know something, researching that says taking breaks, having weekends, making sure that you spend time for yourself, doing all these things are really, really healthy. And not only they're benefiting the organization, but they benefit the individuals and make sure that they actually perform higher. But the insane thing is those researchers are not actually listening to that advice. And why? It's because it's the system that is changing them and making them feel inferior. Let's spend some time thinking about how we can not go at 100% all the time. When I look at, it's the same problem that I see with houses, unfortunately, in the United States, but I think it's a problem everywhere. People get a loan and they want to maximize that loan so that they can get a big house and show to other people that they somehow made it. And yet when you get it, you're trapped in that house. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. And you don't feel good. And so what if we can encourage people to push back a little bit, make sure that you always have a little bit of wiggle room so that you can spend time with your family and friends and celebrate all of that kind of stuff and make sure that you're happy and healthy along the way. What if you were able to feel like you were good enough, that you're a good person? I think we could do that. It requires you to stand up. It requires you to do things where you feel good about yourself. That's just for you. And all of these things, we know what these things are. They're easy. They're not rocket science. This is the thing that's like mind-blowing. It's things like getting a good sleep, making sure you spend a little bit of time with your family and friends, having a good meal every once in a while, doing these little subtle things. Those things are good for you. We know those. I mean, frig, every religious organization that has existed for the last couple of thousand years talk about these things, these basic principles. Be nice to other people. These are simple things. And we need to start thinking about them. Why do they exist? Why is it important? We need that. Push back. It's not about performance always. There's a lot to things that are going on. And here's the interesting thing, is that there is, and I love this research, there is research that shows that if you focus on the performance all the time, you're more at risk to actually doing things that are going to remove yourself from the population. Whether it is, if you look at the sort of general thing, maybe you have a heart attack or whatever, but in general, it's just hard to run at as fast as you possibly can all the time. I want you to take a step back, think about how you can balance these things. And I'm not saying don't do anything ever, like that's silly. What I'm saying is make sure that you are taking time for yourself and remembering that you are good enough. You're a spectacular individual, a remarkable individual. And I'm going to remind you every day of that. Just keep going. All right. Take care and have a wonderful day.